Welcome to The Leap with Japa, the podcast that bridges continents and connects stories. Join us as we dive into the vibrant world of international education, explore diverse cultures, and share the extraordinary journeys of students far from home. Whether you're dreaming of studying abroad or already embarking on this adventure through other means, Leap with Japa is your companion in navigating the exciting, challenging, and transformative world of global education. Let's leap into today's episode. Welcome to another episode of Leap with Japa. Today we dive into part 2 of our mini-series with Dr. David Adamo, a beacon in the world of software testing and education. Dr. Adamo opens up about the highs and lows of his PhD journey, his groundbreaking work in software testing, and the invaluable lessons learned from teaching and mentorship. This episode is a deep dive into the perseverance and passion that drives success in academia and beyond. Join us as we continue to explore the inspiring journey of Dr. David Adamo. Let's leap forward together. Like, you're not here to get A's. It's a PhD program.
Oh man, but yeah. So anyway, ultimately,
Yeah.
I finished the PhD in 2017, December 2017.
So it took you from 2012
Yep.
to 2017.
Yep.
Now all of you are scaring me with this PhD thing. I started in 2019. I haven't even advanced yet. Yeah, so let's move on. You hold that thought. I know what you're thinking. Hold that thought. We'll move on to your research and teaching. How did those roles contribute? So we've talked about the research bit. What was the teaching like, and how did both the research and the teaching contribute to your professional development? We can talk about what your research is about a bit. I know you do stuff in testing, which I don't like, by the way. I hate testing my code. I don't want anyone to test my code. But you could just tell us a bit about your research and how the research and teaching shaped your professional development.
Yeah, so as you've mentioned, a lot of my work focused in software testing,
Right.
which was a research area I didn't even know existed before before the PhD.
Yeah.
To me, testing
Really?
software was just this thing you do, click it and see if it works, right? And then I took a software testing class, and I was like, oh my God, this is great. There are all these algorithms, there are things called, software testing algorithms. There's all this mathematical stuff involved. And I was like, I like this stuff.
Yeah, okay.
And I went to the professor and I was like...
You see why you have to take classes? You see why classes are important for the PhD in the US? Yeah, go ahead.
And then I literally went to the advisor and I was like, to the professor, and I was like,
yeah,
I want you to be my advisor.
Oh, really?
Yeah, and there's a whole story there, but I'll leave it at that,
Okay.
And then I began the not painful, but the careful process of changing it, not changing, but of switching or migrating advisors. And I'll just leave it at that.
Right.
That's something you have to be very careful about if you're in a PhD program, by the way. So anyway.
Yes. Yeah, go ahead.
So I ended up doing research in software testing, and one of the most important skills that research has taught me and contributed to my professional development is writing and overall communication skills. When you do research, you have to write papers, you have to go to conferences and present.
Right.
You have to present to your lab mates, other fellow students.
Right.
You have to present to your advisor. You have to explain what it is you're doing, right? Because your advisor is a contributor to your research. So they're not going to put their name on the paper if they don't know what you're doing. So,
yes, that's true.
They're not going to be able to contribute to that paper if they don't know what it is in the first place. So you got to communicate it constantly, week in, week out, right? So on and so forth. So I often say that, while I might say, and I guess we'll talk about this as well,
PhD we'll talk about it.
Necessary or not, the way I write is heavily influenced by the amount of experience I got as part of my research.
Okay.
The way I communicate, even
Right.
via speech, is influenced a lot by the amount of communication I had to do as part of my research. Right. And this is something I do at work. The way I talk to, I present things at work as a software engineer, the way I write, design documents, and so on and so forth.
Right.
All ties back to the amount of practice I got.
Right. Okay.
And then another thing with research is experimentation. The kind of research I did was it's what some people call, empirical software engineering.
Hello?
And it's that, for example, a lot of my research was of this form. Here are these two algorithms.
Right.
Which one is better than the other?
Okay.
Now, if you're going to prove that one algorithm is better than another, you got to run experiments.
Yes.
With, specific criteria with specific factors, independent variables, dependent variables, so on and so forth. So I had to learn how to conduct reliable experiments.
Okay.
Right. The reason I mentioned this is that has informed my approach to a lot of things, both at work and in life. I tend to run experiments in life. Everything to me is an experiment.
It's an experiment, right.
So, I'm writing code.
Right.
And I need to write tests. A test is an experiment. It's an experiment with a hypothesis that what I've written should provide this output. Correct. Now I write the test. If I write the test and it fails, it means my experiment failed.
Yes.
So almost everything can be framed as an experiment. And I found that to have been a very productive approach to almost everything I do.
Okay.
I'm always looking out for what did I change or do to potentially cause this outcome.
Okay.
And what can I adjust next time
to make sure that this changes
that outcome, right?
Right.
Now, another final one with research is getting comfortable with rejection.
Okay.
And this is a skill, something everyone needs to build, because life is full of rejection, right?
Right.
When you write academic papers, you submit them to a conference, and, peer reviewers. I've seen some interesting peer reviews.
Oh, wow. Okay.
I remember one, and this wasn't mine, interestingly, but I read it because it was for a friend. And I think someone was like, the way this paper is written sounds like it was written by a bunch of gerbils. Or is it gerbils? I'm not sure how to pronounce that word, but some animal or whatever.
Wow.
And the reviewer was saying this because a lot of sentences were written in passive form. I won't get into all the grammar. And this is part of what you learn when you write, right?
When
active
you write,
voice and passive voice.
Active voice and passive voice. That's true. I didn't know that was for a scientific paper. Whether that was important, that's an eye opener for me.
Yeah. My advisor, and I don't know if she ever gets to listen to this, but who knows? You never know. She taught me about active and passive voice, and it got drilled in my skull, right? So. But
I see, anyway. I see that whenever I write something and I put it in Grammarly, and it kind of forces you to say, hey, you should be writing this in. This sounds very passive. So while we're on this, what exactly is the implication of having passive voice in a written paper? Why does it matter?
I like how you phrased that. What is the implication?
Yeah, there must be something that is wrong when you write, because my mind is thinking that if I write in a passive voice, it sounds like I wasn't the one that did the experiment. I'm reporting what someone else did. That's the only thing that comes to mind now. But what else is the other implication?
Yeah, so it has a lot to do with the clarity of sentences.
Okay.
In many cases, it's not like passive voice is wrong. Right?
Yeah, exactly. So that's why I was. That's why I was like, "What's the implication?" They have to be.
You use it with intent, right? You need to. You understand what you're trying to communicate and whether or not to use passive voice. I'm no expert, but implication. It's just that when sentences are written in active voice, they tend to be clearer and easier to read. So I don't know if this example will express this, but if you say, "The boy kicked the ball,"
yes,
active. Passive, the ball was kicked
was
by
kicked
the
by
boy.
the boy. Yeah.
One sentence sounds clearer to me. Maybe that might not be the case for another person, but chances are that if it sounds clearer to me, it probably sounds clearer to a lot of other people.
Okay.
And that's a simple sentence. This thing, it could get a lot more complicated.
Yeah,
but
my mind is already calculating how the passive voice could be interpreted in different ways.
Yeah.
The ball was kicked by the boy could mean that after he kicked the ball, it was the wind that took the ball to where it was going. I mean, if you put that in an experiment and said X and Y were, I did X and Y and Z happened. Oh, Z happened because I did X and Y. Something, it could be, I don't know. I'm just dabbling.
Yeah, it's a whole thing, right? And I would, temper this with, it's stuff that I'm still learning, right? Even, I've had conversations with people where we're like, I say this and they're like, oh, is that really passive voice? It's not. And there are different opinions and so on and so forth. But that's the
very funny.
Very
interesting.
This whole subject, verb, object thing, right? Call back to secondary school English language. I remember the subject, verb, object. Back then, of course, I could only care less. But here I am, thinking about subject, verb, object in my work, right? Interesting,
right?
But it's the fact that you want to focus on, in many cases and in many sentences, who did something, rather than relegating the person who is acting to the background in the sentence, right? It's the whole thing.
Okay.
But anyway, that was a bit of a tangent. But so this was all because this paper that a friend of mine wrote had a lot of passive voice sentences. The reviewer was like, sounds like a bunch of background gerbils wrote the paper, right? Because
now I understand.
Or was done, so and so was done, and maybe doesn't even mention who did it at all, because that's a whole other thing. So when you get reviews like that,
right,
and the paper gets rejected, and you submit it again, it gets rejected, and you have to go change it, and at some point you learn rejection is part of life. Just because something wasn't rejected, so just because something was rejected doesn't mean it's not good.
Right.
Just doesn't meet the requirements of whoever reviewed it. Mm-hmm. Right. So take it, improve it, and submit it, somewhere else that, you just reject, you get rejected, you keep moving, right?
Yeah.
And this is just life lessons, right?
Yeah.
So this is something I apply at work.
Okay.
And in life.
Right.
I do something, someone says, yeah, you could have done that better. Okay.
Yeah. Okay.
I'm not taking that personally, as long as it's delivered constructively, right? There are people who give feedback and it's just like, oh, you're terrible. No, it's not me. You could say my work is terrible.
My work is terrible. Yeah, that's true.
Totally
that's
fine.
True.
You could tell me my work is not good enough, and I will just go back and do it better. Right. And that's an attitude that I got from, constantly getting papers rejected, or doing a presentation at the lab, right? And they're like, yeah, nobody understands what you're talking about, which has happened. It happened a lot, right?
Yeah.
Anyway, now on to teaching.
Okay. Yeah, that's the research bit. So what about the teaching?
Yeah. First of all, I got paid to teach. And man's got to survive. Right? So as part of the teaching program, I got paid to teach. So that's great. But then it comes back to communication again.
Yeah, okay.
It's difficult to teach effectively if you are not an effective communicator, right?
That's true.
And mentorship is a big part of life. But also as a software engineer, as you become senior staff or become a manager, you got to mentor people.
Yeah.
And mentorship is something that's very dear to my heart. Whatever mentorship skills I have now originated from the fact that I had and chose to teach.
Okay.
It's part of my my graduate training overall.
Right.
Right. And those are skills I still use today at work as a software engineer.
Okay.
In my meetings with people, with entry-level engineers and so on and so forth. The same skills I apply to teach computer science, specifically software engineering and programming languages at University of North Texas.
Right.
Skills I'm still using today. Help my colleagues and whatnot understand what I'm doing or do something new. So I bring a lot of software testing to
into the
work,
whole
right?
into the
Like
whole mix.
I have a whole dissertation in software test, so I
Software
think
testing,
some of that.
right?
But I have to sometimes explain it to people,
Yeah,
right? So teaching and those skills, and then empathy. When you teach
yeah,
students,
yeah,
you begin to realize first that the people who are teaching you too is not easy. When they're
yeah,
standing there and you're talking trash about your professor, yeah, it's not an easy job to teach,
right.
right? It takes a lot of work. And then empathy for students as well. As you
Right.
interact with students, you see that just because you know something doesn't mean it's easy for everyone else to learn.
Yeah, yeah, that's true.
And also, just because you know, the fact that you know something can sometimes be a barrier to your ability to teach it properly. Because
Okay.
you might not be able to put yourself, you've forgotten what it was like.
Like for you to
But
learn.
know it.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
So that's
that's true.
something you if you keep an eye out as part of teaching, you would learn and adjust for, you know.
Right.
Yeah. And then joy. The joy of teaching
Of
someone
seeing
and
someone
seeing them
learn.
learn.
Yeah, that for me. That's why I actually teach, to see that light bulb moment go up in their eyes when they finally get it. Oh, I understand what it means to get a loop done now.
Yep.
Yes. Oh, I now understand the conditional statements and
Mm-hmm.
why you had, those little. It kind of fuels you to want to keep doing it.
Mm-hmm.
Kind of gives you that joy.
It's a feeling that I enjoy.
Yeah, yeah. It's not something. It's only those who teach will understand that
Mm-hmm.
feeling.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so I'm gonna move on to the next one, and the next one is about, so you've finished your program now. I'm going to get to that last bit at the end, so that's what we're going to discuss at the last. So,
Mm-hmm.
but I want you to talk about how you got a job. I don't know if you did internships. How, what were the techniques you employed in getting those jobs, both for
Mm-hmm.
internship and full time. For other guests that I've brought on, and I'll keep bringing on, will be people that have actually directly kind of told what to do, what they need to do. This is where, you need to go to this conference or that conference. But for you, who is going to be sharing experience for what you had to learn by yourself, either from, what a third party told you or what a mentor told you, what were those things that you had to do to get either an internship or how you got your full time?
Yeah. Right. So I did have a couple of internships as part of the PhD program.
Okay.
The first one,
Yeah.
that was at IBM Research,
Okay.
Yorktown Heights, New
Okay.
York.
Okay.
I applied to attend the conference. And part
Okay.
of that conference involved submitting your resume. So,
Okay.
it's one other advantage of attending conferences. You get to meet employers. Sometimes
Right.
some conferences ask attendees, students, to upload their resumes, and
Right.
employers can go look at that resume bank. So there was this
Yeah.
conference. I applied, put my resume on there.
But the Nesby conference, which one was it? I mean, feel free to mention the conference. I mean, if you've forgotten, that's fine. But if you remember, so it will
Yeah.
help people to figure out,
It wasn't Nesby. I think it was.
Okay.
Actually, it was probably the Richard Tapia conference.
Oh, okay. That there are lots of conferences,
Yeah,
but
I don't even
Richard
know if
Tap.
it still exists. But
Okay.
yeah,
Okay.
it was probably, I think it was Tapia. Yeah.
Okay.
TAPIA for anyone who wants to Google it. I'll Google
Okay.
later to see if it still exists. And part of that was uploading your resume. And
Okay.
I woke up one day and someone from IBM sent me an email. I was like, "Hey, I saw your resume.
Right.
Are you interested in an internship?" I
You
was
might as
like,
well.
I
It's
was
always very
like,
funny when they say, "Are you
am I?
interested?" They're like, "Dude, yeah."
And I was like, am I interested in an internship? Of course I am. What are you talking about? You pay me, right? So
Very
anyway,
funny.
but even I want to backtrack a bit. One of the
Okay.
first things I learned when I got to the US was, and this came about as a result of conversations with some of my friends who also came to the US and people I had worked some of my fellow college mates from Babcock as well, so on and so forth.
Okay.
I would talk to them and they were like, "Oh, I did this interview for an internship at Facebook that, man, look, you got to know those algorithms and data structures, I had no idea how interviews were done, right, in this part of the world.
Okay.
So I heard that, right? And I was like, I got to hit this leak code thing, this leak code, right? And mind you, remember I mentioned that there were a lot of holes in my knowledge? Yeah, I didn't.
Yes.
Algorithms and data structures wasn't something I had focused on intensively. I passed the classes back home.
Yeah.
I could write code and build apps and so on and so forth. I was
that's all we thought that's all soft. Yeah.
But there's more to computer science than building an app, So when I saw that, look, the way to, you got to know those fundamentals, right? You got to know those algorithms and data, because that's they'll ask you, can you invert a binary tree, as we like to joke.
Yeah, all the fancy stuff. Yeah.
Say less. Study time. I know how to study. you know? So that's step number one.
Right.
If you find out how the system works, what does it take to get a job? What are the interviews like?
Yeah.
And it's fine if you are not good at it. Learn it. So step number one, be prepared for the interviews. So over time, over the years, I was practicing lead code. In fact, I had this thing, and I would say I'm still not great at lead code problems. But here's what I did.
Yeah.
And in fact, if you go on my GitHub, there's a repository there that's just full of lead code solutions.
All the solutions.
Every morning, I would wake up and solve one lead code problem, because I knew this wasn't my area of strength. I still have interviews today where I'm not I'm not a lead code champion, right?
Yeah.
But whatever I've learned so far was a result of wake up every morning, one lead code problem, push it to the repository, go about my day. And I was like, I always say that there are people who consider me intelligent. I've never really thought of myself as that. But what I can tell you, that I will read the thing. I will study the thing long after everyone else has stopped. That I will claim with my full chest, as people will say.
Right.
So that's what I did. So anyway, then IBM messages me.
Okay.
And of course, there's interview.
Yes.
Right. And here I am lead coding every day. Right. So I'm ready. So I do an interview for the internship.
Yeah.
It works out. I talk to a few people and like, okay, come over to Yorktown Heights. We'll pay for your housing, transportation, everything, tech internship and stuff. So that was my first internship. It was great. Met people.
Okay.
Interestingly, I met one of my mentors there.
Oh, okay.
Like from Babcock University. He was getting his own PhD in Hong Kong, right?
Oh,
and all of a sudden, I just see that, I'm at Yorktown Heights, and he too, he's doing his own internship at Yorktown Heights, and I'm like,
what are you doing here?
You're here. And that was great. That was great. It was wonderful.
What did your advisor think about you going off for the summer and not doing research for him for the summer? Because I know, I didn't have that pre-planned, but I wanted to know what did your advisor think?
That's you asking question from experience.
Oh yes, I wanted to know. You don't have to say it, but for people that think that this PhD, I'll just go off for 3 months, and your advisor will just watch. Okay, all right, you will come back.
So, of course, there was that whole thing of this is time you could have been spending doing research, but I was lucky to have an understanding advisor. Interestingly, who she would always. She was just always supportive.
Okay, but that's good. I hear once you have a good one, you keep it. Once you have a good advisor, you keep that advisor. My advisor,
no one is perfect. There were challenges, in the advisor-advisee relationship, but
which is expected.
Overall, it was mostly about, well, if that's what you want to do, we're gonna make the best of it.
Right.
And this comes up later on. We may or may not get to talk about it in depth. So anyway, she was supportive.
Okay.
This was also at a time when, remember, this PhD thing was hard for me. I hadn't made much progress in my PhD at this point. Like, this was like in year 3, like I was slacking real bad. But, it's like, you want to go do an internship? Understandably, there's money involved, right? Again, look, we don't...
Yeah.
Some people have money, but I didn't have the money to throw around. I was depending on the goodness of the school. And hustling to teaching, getting paid,
Yeah.
And here I am, an internship wants to give me thousands of dollars. I was like, I need this money to survive.
Like, it's a no-brainer.
So I'm sure she understood that, right? So thankfully. So anyway, I go to IBM, come back, great experience. I meet someone, a mentor of mine, and he's great. And if he listens to this, he knows who he is. And great experience.
Great.
I get a feel for a bit of tech money, right? I'm like,
right. You started understanding
this PhD program, But anyway, so I come back.
Yeah.
Struggle to do more research. Second internship is, and this was a defining internship. Okay. Defining. But again, I think your question was how did I get these internships?
Yes.
Okay. So
you've explained the first one. So, people have an idea that you need to make sure that you go for conferences. Mm-hmm. You would also notice that you never mentioned I applied online. You had to network. So there's this component where applying online is good, but going to actually see hiring managers and recruiters that actually have open roles goes a long way. So you don't just you can keep applying every day, but once you have some form of gathering, just go.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Especially as a student, especially as an international student.
Exactly. Especially as an international student.
I would say one thing, as an international student, you don't have the same privileges as
you don't.
Students that are native to the country you're in.
Yeah.
You have to hustle harder.
Because you have things called statuses and EAD cards and do you need work authorization? But tell us about the second one, and then we'll bounce through what you're currently doing, and then that very interesting last question. So go ahead for the second internship. How did you get it?
Yeah. So a bit of random fact that is very interesting about my career.
Yeah.
I've applied to many jobs, so applying is good. Please apply.
Yeah, applying is good.
Listening, if you're in this position.
Discount that, but
interestingly, I've thinking about through my internships and even my full-time jobs. Every job I've held, I don't think it's a result of anyone I applied to.
That's one of the things I've noticed. Yeah, you applied a lot.
Responses. It's not that I don't get responses, but maybe interview doesn't work out or whatever.
Yes.
The jobs I've held are not the ones I applied to, which is strange now that I think about it. So I say this because here I am working on my research, again, automated software testing. Basically, a lot of my time in school was spent, how can I just have this tool where I say, here is my application on my website. Tool, test it. I don't have to tell you what tests are, it's algorithms, AI, blah, 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 blah.
Right.
So I'm doing all of this. One of my projects, my research project, I called it AutoDroid. This is the name I came up with. I don't know how clever it actually is. And anyway, so I'm working on these things, writing papers, so on and so forth. And then someone messages me on LinkedIn from a company, right? I don't, probably don't need to mention the name, from a company, and is like, hey, we're working on this special project.
Right.
The special project is meant to do some testing related stuff, automated testing. We're trying to do some kind of intelligent automation type thing.
Oh, wow.
And we're looking for people to join the research team. And I see that your research seems to be in that area.
Aligned.
Mind you, I hadn't graduated yet. I still had and I hadn't even made a lot of progress towards that.
Again, you haven't made progress.
I'm sorry, if I'm going to say it this way, this was a hopeless time for me.
Oh, wow.
So, I was at a point where I was like, I don't know that I'm cut out for this PhD. The reason I have a master's degree, one
okay.
thing. The reason I have a master's degree is that I got to a point in my PhD where I was like, I need to hold something.
Wow, because I noticed, because I remember checking your LinkedIn. So there were two things that popped up to me when we started the interview. First of all, you said you got admitted directly into the PhD program. So the expectation was you're going to get a PhD. The natural thinking, I thought, when you check your LinkedIn was you came in for your master's, and then when you finished, you completed the PhD. It's the reverse. It was the inverse. You came in for the PhD, but you actually had to hold on to the master's first because, like you just mentioned, it was probably a very dire time. Like, okay, maybe I might not even graduate with this PhD. So yeah. I don't feel bad. I don't feel bad all of a sudden because I'm at that point right now where I'm saying, am I sure I want to do this? I have a master's already. I'm not. Anyways, I don't want to preempt our last question, but yeah.
I'm sorry if I keep going on as I talk.
No, that's fine. I mean, it's good. Anyone that's listening will at least wait till the end to hear what we're talking about. But yeah, so they reached out to you saying that automated testing. Okay, go ahead.
Yeah, and so I replied to that message, and I was like, I'm still in school.
Thank you for tuning into this episode of Leap with Japa. I hope it brought you valuable insights and stories that resonate with your journey. If you have any thoughts to share, questions, or want to send a voice note with your feedback, please visit our website at leapwithjapa.io. You will find a contact form there. I would love to hear from you and feature your voice in a future episode. Don't forget to subscribe to the podcast on your favorite platform, some of which are Apple Podcasts, Spotify, iHeartRadio, or Player FM. Your subscriptions and reviews help us grow and reach more listeners, and I truly appreciate each one of them. Also, check out our merch store on leapwithjapa.io website for some cool t-shirts and hoodies. Perfect for showing your support for the show. Stay tuned for our next episode, where we'll dive even deeper into the experiences and challenges of international education and careers. Until then, keep leaping forward, and thanks again for being part of the Leap with Japa community.